All right, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the sign of Libra. So let's get into it. All right, so if you haven't watched my other astrology videos, the first thing you must understand is that when I'm talking about the sign of Libra, I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm talking about the sign itself. If you consider yourself a Libra, that's only your sun sign. That's the sign in which the sun was in at the time you were born. But every planet is in your natal birth chart somewhere, as are the rest of the signs. Point being, you have to take the full chart into account if you want to get the full picture on someone, not just their sun sign. Okay? I mean, if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't be doing this. As a Capricorn, the most skeptical sign, would not be teaching magic and the occult and astrology, etc. But my rising sign, my ascendant, is Pisces. Pisces being the sign of the mystic. I have Mars in Scorpio. Scorpio is the occult, mysteries. I have Venus in Sagittarius, teaching. Okay? You have to take the full chart into account. Now, there is a reason that they use the sun sign in horoscopes, because you will identify with it quite a bit. For those of you who were born with your sun in Libra, you're probably going to identify a lot with the qualities of Libra that we're about to go over. But just understand that the sun sign isn't the end-all be-all of astrology. There's a lot more to it than that. Depending upon your particular planet placements, you could be atypical and not identify with much of it at all. It's possible. Okay? And we go over this every time we do an astrology video, because I know it's in people's nature to just watch the video on their sun sign and skip all the others. If you really want to learn astrology, you got to learn them all. So with that out of the way, let's get into the sign of Libra. Libra runs from September 23rd to October 22nd. Now, the first thing that we do when we look at any sign is we look at its planetary ruler and its element. And with Libra, its ruler is Venus, and its element is cardinal air, which is kind of a strange combination because Venus is a feminine planet, yet Libra being an air sign gives it a more masculine quality. And again, I'm not talking about anybody in particular, this is just the sign itself. Now, the element of air correlates to thought. So cardinal air would be the beginning of thought, the beginning of reason. We're beginning to rationalize. And this is important because the sign of Libra is all about relationships. And some people may think that the element of water would be a better fit for Libra, being a sign of relationships. But no, it's air. Because how are you going to have a relationship if you can't reason with one another, if you can't rationalize with one another, if you can't intellectually work things out? There is no partnership. Okay? Libra is the first sign to come along that is opposite to another sign. So we've gone through the first 6 signs, and now suddenly we have a pair of opposites, Aries and Libra, which are ruled over by Mars and Venus, male and female. And that is the pairing. And before I get people writing me about it, if you're interested in LGBTQ, those are off by one sign to the left. That would be Mars and Mars, Aries and Scorpio, or Venus and Venus, Taurus and Libra. One sign off from being the actual opposite pairing. That's just FYI. So suddenly we have Libra standing in front of Aries, and in doing so is beginning to form this circle of the zodiac, this chart. And so Libra creates space. Whereas before all the zodiacs were on a linear line, Libra has made it possible to start wrapping around and actually facing its opposite on what is to be the circle. So Libra begins to create space, which is necessary for a good and successful relationship. You need space, physical, spiritual, emotional. It's that pairing between independent Aries and dependent Libra. So you need to come together, and then you need time apart. Being together, time apart. If you're always together, you'll drive each other nuts. Maybe not at first, but eventually. So Libra creates space because space is required for the relationships to work. Now, Aries is independent. You don't want to be tied down. This is me. I am. The individual, right? Just like a typical guy. It's right there in the sign. So he says to Libra, get out of my way. You're blocking my view. To which Libra replies, I am your view. Because one of the main qualities of Venus, and Libra by extension as its ruler, is beauty. So Aries is standing opposite to Libra, Aries being Mars, Libra being Venus, male and female. And it's always the female body that's considered the work of art, both art and beauty being qualities of Venus. So Venus comes along and says, no, this is what you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at me. I am the view. I am the goal. I am the prize. Now, because the signs are the opposite, and this is going to be true of the other signs that we'll be going over that are the opposite of the ones we've already covered, the qualities of those signs are going to be opposite as well. Equal yet opposite, just like a mirror image. When you look into the mirror, the image is equal, yet it's reversed, it's flipped. The right is the left is the right. It's the opposite. And that's a lot like how the signs are to their opposite sign. Equal yet opposite. So with Aries and Libra, we get Mars, we get Venus, we get male, we get female. We have the individual with Aries, I am. When we have relationships with Libra, Aries is independent, Libra is dependent. Aries is the god of war. Libra makes peace, diplomacy, compromise, which we'll get into in a moment. So Libra brings the mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all? Venus and her beauty. When it comes to relationships, opposites attract. And the best match for people is someone who reflects who you are, both the good and the bad. Libra is showing who you are through your relationships. So don't blame the reflection. Don't blame the mirror for reflecting who you are. It's like everything else that we teach here. If you want to change your relationships, you have to change yourself. Your relationships are a reflection of you. If you change, they'll change. Libra is about compromise, diplomacy, working things out, because that's what it takes to create a successful relationship. You have to have compromise. You have to have give and take in order to achieve balance, for the two halves to make the whole. And that should tell you something about those who aren't good at relationships. People who have been divorced 3 or 4 times, people well off into their 40s who still have a new boyfriend or girlfriend every year, or still wonder why they're still single. It's because they're not good at compromise. They're not good at give and take. It's all about them, right? They have more Aries than they do Libra. Aries makes war, Libra makes peace. Okay? When you sacrifice something in the relationship, when you have to give something for the relationship, it's not to the other person, it's to the relationship itself. It's for the sake of the partnership. And most people don't understand that. They think that they're bowing the knee to the other person, which is only true if it's all give and no take. Like one person keeps giving, and the other person gives nothing, creating an imbalance. But all things being equal, no, you're making a sacrifice to the relationship itself, not the other person. Libra is about balance. That's why it's represented by the scales. Equal yet opposite. Libra is very concerned with equality. Libra rules over the law. Libra is the lawyer, right? Libra creates the law, creates the rules so that everyone's not fighting like Aries. If there's a disagreement with Aries, he'll just club you over the head. But Libra's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to take the dispute into a court of law, and we're going to even things out. Aries will physically fight you. Libra will fight for you by representing you in court. And you're not supposed to represent yourself in court. You're supposed to have someone on your side, a partner that is to represent you, to be a reflection of you and your interests. So Libra being cardinal air, one of the first things it thinks is, how do we keep people from hurting each other? How do we go from what's essentially the Wild West to a civilized society and prevent crime, keep people from doing whatever it is they want to do that would cause others harm? And so Libra creates the law, which is meant to prevent crime. And the Libra lawyers fight for you in court to avoid physical conflict, to avoid shedding blood, as war is the way of Aries, not Libra. Libra is diplomacy. working things out with your fellow man, other nations, etc. We're going to talk it out. We're going to even things out on the scales. Aries doesn't like to compromise. Aries is all about the self. It's his way or the highway. Or war. And in the way of Aries, it's really survival of the fittest, because only the toughest, strongest people are going to get their way. But then Libra comes along and says, no, we're not going to do it that way to where only the strongest win. Instead, we're going to have an enforceable law of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, so that it all evens out. But it's also Libras that come along and poke holes in their own laws and find the flaws in them. It's Gandhi, who is a Libra and a lawyer, who came along and said, an eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. So it's Libra who comes along and finds its flaws in its own laws. And Gandhi was also known for peaceful protest, hunger strikes. He was fighting through peace, fighting by not fighting, passive resistance. John Lennon, another person who has a sun sign in Libra, came along and said, give peace a chance. Now both Lennon and Gandhi were killed, shot dead, by Aries. Aries is violence. Aries doesn't want peace. Doesn't want peace spread everywhere. Aries wouldn't have anything to do if that happened. So by trying to spread peace, they've openly declared themselves as the enemy of Aries. Libra is the sign of open enemies, meaning enemies that are not hidden to you, ones that you actually know about, because that's another type of relationship. It's just one that's not on good terms. Libra does not really make the distinction between your best friend and your worst enemy, a lover or someone who hates you. They're both relationships to Libra. They're both equal, yet opposite. Being the sign of relationships, Libra also rules marriage. And marriage is a legal contract. It's a partnership bound by law. And the law is concerned with justice and fairness. The word fairness, by the way, can mean both equality and beauty. And beauty is often characterized by symmetry. Symmetry is a balance between two halves, two sides, two opposites. Libra rules over symmetry, which is balance. And it's said that the more beautiful someone is, the more symmetry, the more Libra they have in their face. They're Aries. Aries rules over the face.
Oh, dude, you're blowing my mind.
Now, the Hebrew letter associated with Libra is Lamed, which is the middle letter of the Hebrew alphabet, right in the middle, in perfect balance. It's also considered the most beautiful of the Hebrew letters, and it means to learn and to teach, which is what you do in a relationship. You're always learning from each other. You're always teaching each other, healing and being healed by each other. It's always a give and take. If you're always giving or always taking, that's not a real relationship. That's something dysfunctional. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that in today's world too. But no matter what kind of relationship that you have, they only continue as long as your partner and you are both reflected in each other. And this goes for business partners as well. Libra just isn't about romantic relationships. It's about partnerships of all types. Okay? So now that we have our first pair of opposites, along with that comes choice, decision-making. Libra rules over decisions, one or the other, the two sides of the scale, weighing both options, which is exactly what a court of law is for, so that a judge or a jury can make a decision, a verdict. Now, Libra itself isn't that great at making these decisions because Libra could see both sides. Libra is balance in the middle, so it can see both sides of the arguments. It can find the truth in everything. Libra is famous for saying, well, on the other hand. So Libra is good at seeing and understanding both sides. Libra created the sides by being the first opposite sign. Oppositions are really the same on the scales. There's that balance. And it did so that it can make room for the rest of the zodiac, creating that space by being the first opposite. But the interesting thing is that Libra doesn't see everything as opposites. It just sees everything as equal. So an example of that would be north and south. What appear to be opposite directions, Libra would see as the same direction, because what's north of north? Well, south. You can only go so far north before you start heading south. So Libra sees the opposites as equals. Like we're all one globe, we're all one sphere. Libra's always balancing those scales. Libra rules over not only our law, but cosmic law as well. Newton's third law: every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Equal and opposite. Libra also governs karma, as it sees us as one sphere. What you put out will come back to you. You reap what you sow. Saturn, the reaper, the lord of karma, is exalted in Libra. You can't have law or marriage without things being legally binding, and Saturn is the planet of binding. Saturn, being the lord of karma, is the planet that will bring you your karma, even though it is ruled over by Libra. So Saturn is exalted in Libra. You're supposed to get 7 years bad luck for breaking a mirror, 7 being the number of karma, mirrors having to do with Libra. A lot of relationships break up in 7-year increments. You've heard of the 7-year itch. This happens when you're not seeing yourself reflected in that other person anymore, and you need a new mirror, i.e. relationship. Libra thinks in terms of we instead of I. Aries is I am. Libra considers the partnership, the relationship, and speaks in terms of we. It's a big reason why I start off videos with today we're going to be talking about instead of today I'm going to be talking about. Because, let's face it, you're not talking. I'm doing all the talking. But I use we are going to be talking about because it's inclusive. It helps establish a relationship between me and the viewer, the listener, so that you feel a part of it instead of having somebody just dictate to you. Make sense? If you want to have better relationships, use the word we more often than you use the word I when you talk to people. Especially right from the start, right out of the gate. Now, here's an interesting thing about planetary placements in opposite signs. If someone has a lot of planets in a particular sign, all that energy overload tends to leak out into the opposite sign. Such as Genghis Khan, who was born with 5 planets in Libra, yet went on to conquer a large part of Asia and Europe as an Aries, a warlord. It's a rather interesting phenomenon, so if you have a lot of planets in a particular sign, look to the opposite sign to see if you aren't exhibiting qualities of that sign. It's like they become so much of a particular sign that they end up becoming the opposite sign. Like a martial artist who gets so good that they don't want to fight anymore. They'd rather work things out peacefully because they know they'd destroy the other person. Too much warrior ends up becoming the diplomat. The dark side of Libra could be superficial, hypocritical, judging without realizing that they're guilty of the same thing, being overly obsessed with justice and equality as we see in today's social justice warriors, wanting to force justice and equality into every part of your life, that they're willing to use force in order to do it. The opposite sign, Aries. That's what communism is. The equality of Libra forced onto everything by the force of Aries. Take a look at any communist regime. They'll always promise equality for the people, yet be extremely militant. And the military is ruled by Aries. If you won't be equal on your own, we're going to force you to be equal. Well, hold up. There's 10 other signs besides Aries and Libra. Not everything in life is equal. Not everything in life is fair. Some things need to be, such as contracts. If a contract isn't balanced, if it isn't fair, no one's going to enter into it. There has to be advantages to both sides. Contracts are negotiated, diplomacy. The dark side of Libra doesn't do that. It wants to make everything symmetrical, everything balanced, everything equal, without the negotiation, without the diplomacy, without the compromise, and use Aries as the threat of violence instead. You're going to do it or else. That's communism. The law is what the dictator says it is. You don't get someone to represent you or your interests. Now remember, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Doesn't mean we all end up that way. Based upon our decisions and, of course, circumstances, people are going to end up in different places. Even so, we all still have equal rights under the law, under Libra. And that is about it. Libra's tarot card is Justice, quite fittingly. Its color is green, its day is Friday, and its phrase is I balance. and that is the sign of Libra. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and share it if you did. I invite you to come check me out at all the usual places, at Frater Xavier on Twitter, facebook.com/mindandmagick. We've got another channel starting up at bitshoot.com/mindandmagick with all the old favorites. And come join us over at Patreon and Subscribestar, where all patrons get early access to Mystery School videos just like this before they're available elsewhere. We got a new t-shirt design over at Teespring, this time featuring the artwork from the Psalms Magick of the Old Testament program. So check it out. I want to thank you all for joining me. This is Frater Xavier wishing you all the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care.